Stay close, let's go! Again, suppressing fire! Select fire! Find some cover, damn it! Keep advancing! Fly on the kid!
Listen, I got a lot of wounded to take care of down here. You better find a weapon quick and hook up with the Sarge.
Throw a grenade, let's go!
Just past the gate! In those trees!
One of the hallmarks of the Call of Duty franchise is historical authenticity, and we take that very seriously, and that goes everything from guns to vehicles to the missions to the voiceover. So, I started putting out a casting call for voices like James Matteo.
They wanted someone who was very similar to my voice. And I was like, well, I'm not working at the moment.
Jimmy Matteo calls me. He says,
Hey, we're gonna do voice for a World War II game. You wanna?
and that's my spot-on Jimmy Matteo imitation.
I had told him, reach out to all the other Band of Brothers guys because we stick together and see what they want to do. And everybody, raised their hand like they should have and said, I'm in.
I've done my research to work on this game, but these guys for the Band of Brothers spent 10 months over in England. They had to actually go through boot camp, 3 weeks of boot camp.
We call it actor boot camp because we don't want to take anything away from the people who really served.
It was almost like having a VO actor who was a military advisor, and it was like a windfall for us.
It's fun doing it with the same guys, so we already have that camaraderie, connection that we've had there, so it's a lot of fun.
The game emulates exactly what we learned to be the real scenarios of World War II, about tactics, about maneuvers, about weapon operation, and the topography of the areas we were shooting in. And that's what's so impressive about it, because it looks like you're at a window participating in the actual events.
This is my first time doing mocap work. I've never experienced being in a sausage suit. Kind of makes you really self-conscious, but after you see what the product is, it's a lot of fun.
One of the real great things about doing motion capture as a group is interaction, connection. They can actually touch each other, they can move, they can grab each other's arms, You actually have whoever is playing this character in the game, that character throughout the entire game will have that actor's personality, and you don't get that off of using a straight traditional motion capture artist. So what you're seeing in the game is an exact copy of an actual human's motions, and in that case, you don't get anything more lifelike.
They were doing a scene on a boat, and it's rocking in. At the end of the scene, Jimmy is sitting down, and Jimmy's like, ah! My hands are stuck!
We put so much of our heart into this game, which is so dynamic, and to see the actors themselves and really getting into it just means that we're gonna get that much more intensity out of that when we get it into the game. It's great to see.
Plus, it's just fun to yell. We don't get to scream a lot in our normal lives, so it's just great to go into a small room and just lose your mind.
Grenade!
My grandfather was actually a decorated colonel for World War II, ran an Air Force base. I grew up with a real sense of reverence for these people.
They're all individuals. They all had names, families. Became very personal.
The willingness these guys had to put themselves in the line of fire for what they consider to be the greater good of not just America, but of all the free world. It's the kind of characteristic in a human being that you're stunned to come in contact with.
Big Red One is the 1st Infantry Division, which I'm very proud to have served with. The name actually comes from the patch that emanated from World War I, where just a piece of a German's hat material was hung on the shoulder of the soldier, and that started with the Big Red One.
The other units in the European theater disliked the 1st Infantry Division because the first thought that they were the #1 and the best, and this was brought about by our generals. Brigadier General Teddy Roosevelt used to tell all the generals, there's only one division in this damn army, that's the 1st Division. The motto of the Big Red One is no mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great, duty first. And they mean it. We had guys in the outfit, 24, 26. They had been through Africa and Sicily. They were seasoned veterans. I got a nickname, Yak Yak. I don't know why. You know, way us Irish guys are from Boston.
I think I was the funniest one in the squad. I felt it was my responsibility to my platoon to keep morale up.
I spent a lot of time in Big Red One. I made a lot of friends.
We buddied together. We had a lot of good times together. It's been over 60 years, you know, a lot of names just fade out. But his name will never fade out, obviously, because he saved my life, you know.
You rely on that guy on the right and left. This stuff about apple pie and mother and, you know, the country, that's baloney. You soldiered because you didn't want to leave your buddies. You didn't want to make your buddies ashamed of you.
It was a regular Army unit. It was well-trained, well-organized. They met their baptism of fire in North Africa, and it just built from there. They had a pretty bad reputation as being pretty tough guys, but they were fighters.
I had been in the Army a year. I went in 43, and when I joined the 1st Division, I already been in a year, private first class. And the guys from Sicily and Africa were very standoffish. And I found out why. They don't want to annoy you because you get whacked, they get a friendship. And I understood that because these guys had been through Africa and Sicily. There were so many replacements for the casualties they had in Sicily.
When we were making the attack at Beja in North Africa, we got into the cactus fence that surrounded the farm when the Germans opened up us. They sucked us in. It was an ambush, really. When I got back to the company area, I found that I had taken a number of bullets through the back of my back and had never even known it.
That was one of the roughest battles that we had in Sicily. Behind me, 2 Italian soldiers came, and they had their guns leveled out right at my stomach, see? But I didn't panic. I said, Al, come here and talk to these guys. What the hell do you want me to say? I said, well, tell them that they got no place, no future here, and so forth. So finally, the Italian soldiers said, all right, we'll surrender.
I joined the 2nd Platoon. I was a rifleman. And there was relatively few people in the platoon. And I asked one of the combat veterans, I said, where is everybody? He said, oh, they're all dead or they're in a hospital someplace. He said, you got yourself in a wrong outfit.
On D-Day, I was the last-minute replacement. So I never trained like God bless these fellas did. Thank God I was with some seasoned men as the first had from North Africa and Sicily because they actually gave me the courage to be with them. Which was in a way, too, it was a proud moment. When the coxswain dropped the ramp and the first fellas off got killed instantly. And somebody yelled over the side, and I went over the side, and I lost everything I had. So I was over my head, and I started to swim in. I think if you ever saw the movie Private Ryan, it depicts it exactly what it was with the bullets hitting, the sound of those bullets hitting the water all around you.
I finally got out of the water. I made it up almost to the shale wall, and I got hit with some shrapnel, knocked me down. Of course, the rules were you don't stop for anybody. So the other guys are running right by me, you know. And the fire was just completely intense. I got belted 4 or 5 times. And the tide is coming in. And this is hard to talk about, believe me. And I'm gonna drown. And I'm trying to keep my head out of the water because it's coming right over my head, you know. Finally, somebody came down from this shale area. Turned out it was my buddy, you know, and he couldn't budge me. And he came down on the fire, too. He went back, and they got another guy from Chicago. And he came down, and they cut my jacket off with a trench knife. I survived because of him when a lot of my good friends were killed.
The only thing that saved me was we had galoshes on, and the combat boots had a leather strap down here. It was a mine went off and blew sideways, and the leather was what stopped it. And I didn't even know I was wounded because it was so damn cold. The blood froze, and after we got off the hill, I said, "What the hell's this liquid?" And I looked down at my ankle, and my ankle was all cut up with shell fragments.
Out of nowhere comes these Germans. I used my M1 rifle. I had the bayonet on it because I was digging, trying to chop a hole. And I went off with 8 rounds, and I got some of them, and next thing, this fellow was almost on top of me. And I guess it was instinct. He swung his rifle at me, and I got him with my bayonet. And to this day, that haunts me. It's an awful way to die. And that's something I always have to live with.
I got called back in that afternoon, and they sent word that he wanted to see me, and I thought, well, what am I going to get this time? And he told me to pack my barracks bag. I was going home. And I had a 45-day furlough. And I hit Kansas City on the VE day, and it wasn't safe on the streets in Kansas City on VE day because everybody wanted to buy you a drink.
I'm Dan Kopel, lead designer for the multiplayer part of Big Red 1. This map is Kasserine. It represents a small village outside the Kasserine Pass where the U.S. was trying to pinch the Germans, the axis between the British and the Americans, and they were moving east. They set up in the villages, and then the Germans decided to counterattack. This is the first time that the U.S. forces actually got to fight regular German infantry, and the first time that they fought Rommel.
This is Alexander Conserva. I'm a programmer on multiplayer. This map is great because it's a night map. I'm kind of partial to night maps myself. I think they just look really cool. And it gives you a lot of opportunities to hide in the shadow.
Yeah, one of the nice things about this map is all the different routes. There's obviously one main route, the road through the town, but going through the buildings and stuff like that, there's just an enormous amount of different pathways you can take, so you can come up and attack them from many different sides. So even though the defenders can get there first to defend the area, getting the attackers in there, coming up, they don't know which way you're coming from. So your element of surprise is definitely on the attacker's point of view. The neatest things about this being a night map, in the actual single-player game, this is a daytime, a dawn map, and we decided for the multiplayer that when we brought it over for multiplayer, we wanted to do this as a night map. And as soon as we did that, we just fell in love with it. Actually considered changing the single-player game, but then we decided that probably wouldn't be too wise.
Yeah, I think this map's also unique in that, unlike a lot of the other missions where they're more of a traditional Western European architecture, this has got a very different feel to it, a feel that not a lot of people are really used to.
Yeah, for the architecture, we did a lot of research trying to make sure that it felt authentic, that it felt like an authentic Tunisian village, especially outside around the area of Kasserine. So yeah, we went and got a lot of footage off the net and other places to actually get a good feel of what buildings and villages look in this area of the world.
When people first start playing this map, they really think because of the big broad avenue that runs pretty much through that's the focal point of the whole map really. They think that the tanks really have the advantage, but after you start playing this map for a little while, you find that the tanks are almost at a disadvantage because it's so easy to hide in the dark and to let the tank roll by and then just to blow it up once it's gone by, that a lot of times you find people not even jumping in the tanks.
Well, that's the difference between a unit that works together and can have infantry support for the tanks. I mean, and that's something that's great about Call of Duty, and the fact that that kind of feeling comes out, that a tank isn't that overpowering. And like reality, when tanks would go into villages all by themselves, they get torn apart pretty quickly. And you need your infantry support to find those guys hiding in the back of buildings. Dan Kopel, lead designer for the multiplayer. This map is Maubage. We pronounce it horribly, we're not French. After the Allies broke out from Normandy, they pushed through France pretty quickly and into the Belgium area. This map represents an area of Belgium near Mons, and then actually into Germany near Aachen. And this is where the United States started running into much more stiffened German defenses as the Germans started feeling the threat of the United States coming into, or the Allies coming into Germany. And the battle around here, this area, was just, they decimated the towns and stuff like that, which is totally represented in this map. It's just one big rubble over the Belgian countryside.
This is Alexander Conserva, a multiplayer programmer. This map is definitely set up very well for Capture the Flag. We're all huge first-person shooter fans, and there's a lot of us that have been playing first-person shooters for a very long time, and Capture the Flag is very near and dear to most of our hearts.
One version or another, definitely.
Yeah, one version or another. But when we made our Capture the Flag, we basically sat down and said, what is the most classic example of Capture the Flag? And we did that because we wanted to do just a regular good Capture the Flag that everybody likes, and we didn't want to try to get fancy and invent new rules or anything. We just gave a straight, hard Capture the Flag.
This map is a conversion of the first map in the single-player game, Prologue. For this, what we wanted to do was we actually looked at this map. We loved the map, but one of the interesting things about it is that the whole Axis part of the map, or the Axis, the base, and all that stuff, actually you don't play in the single-player game at all. So it really gave us a kind of a what's behind the curtain kind of a feeling, that during the single-player game, you look at this and you see the front walls of all these buildings, and looking into the site, you see that stuff. But you really don't actually get to see what's going on behind this. We loved the final product. It actually turned out really, really well, and leads to a very big open type feel for the map, but also very constricting some of the pathways, and tons of rubble and tons of destruction, we love destruction.
This was definitely a team favorite map. I mean, it just looks so great. It really feels like you're there. It feels like there's war going on here. And when you get this level filled with people, it is a war going on here.
Tanks actually do a little bit better here than they do some of the tighter maps too, because it isn't. There can be a little bit further away from all the houses and all the cover that the anti-tank people can hold. The interesting thing about it, though, is that since there is only one way for the tank to get across the canal, that area becomes really contested, and if your team can get your tank across that canal, that really gives that team a bit of slight of advantage at that point in time, now that their tank is closer to the enemy's base.
One of the biggest things you want to do with any of the game modes, really, Capture the Flag's no different though, is you want to try to build up your rank as quickly as possible, because every time you go up in rank, you get an advantage. Depending on what class of weapon you've chosen, you get anything from more ammo, more grenades, to a special weapon. Every single class gets a special weapon when they go up in rank. There's the artillery strikes, there's satchel charges, there's spawning in with Panzerfaust. And really, one of the keys to any of the game modes is whether you're playing deathmatch, whether you're playing capture the flag, whether you're playing domination, is to really, you want to build yourself up in rank, because when you build yourself up in rank, it gives you a huge advantage. I hope you guys have fun, because we had a lot of fun playing it.
Dan Kopel, lead designer for the multiplayer project. This is the map's Torina. It's a Sicily map. What happened here historically was, after the Allies pushed the Axis out of North Africa, they wanted to move their way up towards Germany and Europe, and Sicily is off of Italy, so taking out Sicily and controlling Sicily first would lead up into an invasion into Italy.
This is Alexander Conserva, programmer on the multiplayer team. Domination is a mode that we brought over from Call of Duty United Offensive. It's a very popular mode, one of the team's favorites to play, because it offers the opportunity for a huge amount of action, and that's what everybody really wants now. This map is particularly well suited to domination. I mean, basically the premise of domination is that there are 5 different flags in the map. You've got to go capture the flag and then hold the flag for as long as you can. If you capture all 5 flags, your team wins the map. Or if you gather enough points to trip the score limit, you'll also win the map. I mean, that was actually one of the big changes that we made from United Offensive, is we didn't feel that that the domination had enough of a incentive to be defensive, to really hold on to the flags, and that there was too much offense, that people continuously be running around capturing flags. This map is really exceptional for this game mode. I mean, with its tight, narrow streets, with all the places to hide, with the different levels where you could be in the top of a 3rd-story building or coming up out of an underground passageway. It's really epic. I'd like to say this is probably was my favorite map when we were playing during development, because this is, just the look of this map is really awesome. I mean, the map designer Paul Sandler went to great extents to make this map as realistic and accurate as possible.
One of the interesting things in our research, Paul did tons of research on this map to get it to look like, for both the single player and the multiplayer map that we have as Torina. The interesting thing is, you'll notice in the skybox is the volcano. And that actually was a real volcano going on during the battle. I mean, off in the distance. It'd just be amazing being part of the 1st Infantry and fighting in a city, and all of a sudden looking up and seeing this active volcano. This is definitely a map for that kind of feel too, because as Alex mentioned, it's so narrow, so tight, lots of little cubby holes to hide in. I mean, sniper heaven here like crazy. And that so well leads to the, opens itself for domination, is that you come, you hold a flag, you go find a couple spots, and you wait for the other side to come. You know they're coming, because when you start that flag off, they know that you're there, they know you took it, they know somebody's around, so they're looking for you, and then you're just sort of waiting for them to come around the corner.
The center section of the map, I think, is really key to the entire gameplay. I mean, that's where the most dramatic fighting goes on, because it's where all the roads lead. There's the 3 roads coming to the one spot. And then, so people end up there fairly often, and also there's that center flag that everybody wants to grab. It's a really, really cool place to fight. There's all sorts of niches and cubby holes. There's a really great spot down one of the streets up in the 2nd floor balcony, where you can set up an LMG that's perfect for just holding down that flag, or maybe taking some defenders off the flag. This section right here is just where your fiercest firefights are going to go on. So I'd almost recommend saving this flag till last.
One definite ability plus about that is the fact that, the middle flag is going to be it's equal distance from both of the spawn points. But then one of the negative parts about that is, while you're trying to fight this, it leaves you, you have to control, to actually win the match by taking all 5 flags, you have to keep control of the 2 flags closest to their base while you're trying to assault a flag in the middle of the map. And that actually, I think, would be a pretty hard thing to do. I mean, But then again, controlling all 5 flags at the same time is difficult to do anyway. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one of the things is that a lot of times in domination, what people will tend to do is they'll get caught in a little trap. What happens is they'll focus on one flag. Like, they'll go and try to grab it, and they'll die, and then they'll really make it a point in their head that they got to get that one flag.
The other thing about all that is that's why it's so good in this map is that there are so many small, extra little passageways to get through. It's like they don't know how you're going to get to that next flag. You got definitely a lot of different ways to do that. And if there's defenders taking one of the routes away from you, you can always try a different route to get to where you're trying to go to.
The best part of being part of Call of Duty 2 is the fact that you're working on Call of Duty 2. It's an incredible opportunity. It's an awesome game, and I'm really lucky. The team that we work with is the Navy SEAL team of video games. We just have an incredible talent pool.
Working on this game is kind of a dream come true for me because when I was a little kid, I used to look through all the books and watch all the movies, and now I'm actually, the guy kind of making these events that I read about come to life.
To create the next chapter in the highly successful Call of Duty series, Activision brought 2 expert teams together. Treyarch, makers of the Spider-Man games, brought an expertise in console development. Grey Matter, developers of Return to Castle Wolfenstein and Call of Duty United Offensive, brought to the table award-winning first-person shooter experience for the PC.
Some person had the wisdom over at Activision to go, I see a great combination here. Part of a video game is trying to give people a wide variety of encounters and places to actually fight. But we wanted to also keep with one team, one set of individuals that fought through a whole bunch of experiences.
The Big Red One is the 1st Infantry Division. They were considered to be the top-notch fighters. They're at the forefront of pretty much every major military action in the Second World War.
In the design process, the team did extensive research, including travel to the 1st Division Museum.
We actually found out that there's an actual Big Red One museum with a built-in historian who was willing to help us. And so we had a lot of detail that we could draw out of that and sprinkle throughout the game to really give it more authenticity. Even like down to the time of day, the type of weather that was happening on that particular battle, that kind of stuff.
One of the cool things about Big Red One are the details, the small details that people might not notice. When we were doing the initial design for this level, we were looking through pictures and we got the city of Troina and we're setting maps up and one of us goes, what the heck is that in there? I think it looks like a live volcano. Sure enough, a little research, there was a live volcano that was going off. So quick trip to the art department. Now in that level, we've got this big volcano in the distance going off. We try to get as accurate as possible. One of the perfect examples is the weapons. Our weapons guy would bring in MP40s, would bring in MP44s into the office. Pretty scary sometimes.
We actually had the opportunity to go out to Las Vegas to fire the weapons, which was really cool.
We have various mics placed all around the entire range. We have stuff here, we have stereo pairs, and we have another DAT out there just floating, so hopefully we won't shoot it.
Apparently these are pretty rare weapons. I've got a few friends in the movie sound post-production business who worked on a lot of the big films, and so far as I can tell, nobody has the French and Italian stuff that we're going to be recording today.
One of the gun handlers actually gave me the opportunity to test a theory. We fire light machine guns from the hip. Basically, you can run around and fire this machine gun that's mostly designed to be fired from a bipod or a fixed position. So we wanted to test the theory, and we fired it much the same way that the Marines actually would have fired it on beachheads in World War II. It looked like a scene from a movie. I mean, it was really cool.
One of the things we try to do to create an authentic feel is to have other things going on around the player other than what he and his squad are experiencing at the time. So you may look down an alley and see, some of your friendly forces, going into a house or taking it out. The reason we really emphasize on the squad is because we really wanted to have the same feeling for the player that they would get, say, watching Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan. We really wanted you to go through this game feeling like that you were experiencing the events with a group of people who you get to know.
Early on, what we've done is we've had the characters be clean-shaven, in very clean, tight, neat uniforms. And actually, later in the game, you'll notice that they have facial hair, that they're dirty uniforms, that the way they speak, everything looks like they've been through a war. So you can actually see the progression in the characters that you're fighting with as they've gone through the battle too.
From characters to animation, audio to game design, over 250,000 man-hours went into creating the immersive experience that is Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1.